So I take NMN every morning.
What is NMN?
Good question.
So shown that it's like exercise in a bottle.
These are the things that we've been studying in my lab for the last 20 years. What are the processes that diet and exercise do for us that keep us healthy, and why does calorie restriction and intermittent fasting make animals live so much longer? And we think we've figured out a large part of how that works, and now we're mimicking that with molecules.
Is the idea that you can mimic it with molecules and it'll be as effective as intermittent fasting?
I think the molecules will be better. And not only that, when we add them on to a healthy diet and exercise in the animals, they do even better. It's like a supercharged mouse.
Now, when you add them on to the mice, do you also add them on with intermittent fasting? And is there an additional benefit?
We do. One of the first molecules infamous molecules that we are known for is resveratrol from red wine. That molecule, discovered it in my 30s, or at least linked it to aging. What we showed was that if you give it to a fat mouse, they're as healthy as a thin mouse. They live just as long. They didn't get heart disease and all of the other bad stuff. And it was additive. Same with exercise. If we give our latest molecule called NMN to a mouse and we exercise it, it'll run even further than it could with either of those alone. So it's not an excuse to sit around and just eat chips and watch TV. It augments a healthy lifestyle, gets you further than what you could get naturally. 5 in yeast. And what they do is they protect all organisms on the planet, plants, bacteria, humans, from deterioration and disease. They're like the Pentagon. They sense when we're hungry, sense when we're exercising, and they send out the troops to defend us. So when you put more of these genes into a yeast cell or a mouse, they'll live longer, between 5 to 20% longer. And so we think that these genes are responsible for the effects of dieting and exercise, which is great. What that means is we can now mimic that with molecules. So NMN is one of those molecules. So is resveratrol. You can think of resveratrol as the accelerator pedal for the sirtuin genes, and the NMN is the fuel. And without fuel, resveratrol won't work. So NMN is the gas in the car.
I've heard of resveratrol, but is NMN a new molecule? Is this commercially available?
Some people have started selling it on the internet.
The fucking internet.
It's related to NR, which is sold by a bunch of companies.
NR?
Yeah, nicotinamide riboside is a supplement that raises the levels of a molecule called NAD.
I feel like I should make a shopping list.
So get a pen. So while you're writing that down, Joe, so the sirtuins, okay, get this. So sirtuins need NAD to work. Without them, they don't work. In fact, if you don't have NAD in your body, you'd be dead in about 30 seconds. It's a really important molecule. But as we get older, we lose NAD. So by the time you're 50, like I almost am, you have about half the levels of what you had when you were 20. So that's not good. And these sirtuins, they don't protect the body without high levels of NAD. So what NMN does, and this other molecule called NR, which both you can get on the internet, they boost the body's levels of NAD back up to youthful levels again. And if we give them to mice, these molecules to mice or even to worms or yeast, they live longer and they're super healthy.
Now, what level, like how many milligrams are you taking of these things?
NMN is something I get from myself. I'm not selling anything. So I take 1 gram of NMN in the morning. Based on clinical trials, it's been shown that will raise NAD.
With or without food?
I take a little bit of yogurt that I make myself at home just to settle me. I've been doing this for a while, and I only start doing stuff when I see it work in animals first. So take the yogurt, mix in some resveratrol. Resveratrol is great, but it's really insoluble. It's like brick dust. So in the yogurt, it'll dissolve. Take another 1/2 gram of resveratrol.
And how much? 1/2 gram?
Yeah. It's a powder. I have a few kilos left over from clinical trials in my basement. That's going to last me a few decades. And then I also take at night some metformin, which is probably the most radical thing that I take, which is a prescribable drug for diabetes.
Metformin?
Met.
MET? And prescribable drug. But you don't have diabetes? I
do not.
But you take it for?
For preventing cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and aging.
Can you spell it? MET?
FORMIN. And so out of studies of 10,000 people and more, it's been shown that people who take metformin, even if they have diabetes, are protected against other diseases of aging, even frailty. And so most scientists, if you ask them in my field, will say, yeah, metformin is likely to extend your lifespan. It's just that the FDA doesn't let you have it for aging because aging isn't a disease yet. I also take supplements. And in fact, most of my colleagues are in the field of aging or anti-aging, as people call it. So I take NMN every morning.
What is NMN?
Good question. So let me take a quick step back.
Sure.
So about 20 years ago, Lenny Guarente and a team of us at MIT discovered a set of genes that controls aging in yeast cells, just brewer's yeast, what you find in beer and bread. And those genes are called sirtuins, and there are 7 of them in our bodies, 5 in yeast. And what they do is they protect all organisms on the planet, plants, bacteria, humans, from deterioration and disease. They're like the Pentagon. They sense when we're hungry, sense when we're exercising, and they send out the troops to defend us. So when you put more of these genes into a yeast cell or a mouse, they'll live longer. That could be trillions of dollars. Just $50 trillion just in this country alone that could be spent on figuring out how to solve global warming, better education, the environment, saving the 1/3 of species that are becoming threatened. That's why I think tackling aging isn't a selfish act. It's probably the most generous act that I could give the planet.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. People buying supplements, and the supplements have other things in them. And what are you drinking? Do you drink mostly water? Do you consume caffeine?
So with NMN, which gives me a boost, I think, caffeine's a little too intense.
Really?
I find that. So I'll have a cup of coffee in the morning, but that's it.
One a day?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, just to kickstart
How do you live?
It's hard.
What kind of
It's
living
really
is
hard. Sorry.
Right.
It's all going on, and a regular brain that isn't trained would have a hard time.
Yeah, I would imagine. I'm so shocked that you only drink 1 cup of coffee a day with that kind of schedule.
So the NMN is good.
Do you take NAD in an IV form?
No.
No. Now NAD in supplemental form, though, in terms of orally ingested NAD?
So if you give NAD to an animal or a cell, it's taken up really poorly. NAD is a big molecule. NMN is a smaller version of NAD that gets into cells quickly. So that's probably the difference.
So it's the same benefit, but it's easier consumed orally?
Well, I think so. I mean, we're still at the cutting edge of figuring out what's true and what isn't, but NAD is thought to not be well absorbed in the body as compared to these other smaller molecules that the body then turns into NAD once it gets in.
They look great.
They do. So my father is a prime example of that. So he's in Australia, and he's been taking care of his body since he was in his early 40s, probably a little too late, but still. He's been taking some NMN and some metformin for a while, resveratrol, but he's been active. That's the key, I think. And then, so that combination, so he's now just turning 80 this year. You would think that he's 30. If you didn't know his age, he's running around. My mother passed away from cancer, so he's dating women. He's out every night. He's traveling the world. Now, this is the future for people in their 80s. He started a new career.
At 80?
It was at 76.
What's he doing?
He got bored. So he retired at 67, thought he had another 10 years of good life, and he kept going and going. His friends are getting frail. He's still active. So he went back and he's working at Sydney University on the ethics panel for clinical trials and other studies. And that's what you want older people with wisdom and knowledge to do, to give back.
That sounds good, too. Like, for you get your dad hopped up on all these awesome new drugs. Then you get him working on the ethics panel for clinical studies. And then you get him to give you some death row patients so you can try it on, right? Ethics.
You're onto me.
Yes, I know what you're doing now, man. You're wiggling the system a little bit with your
keep it in the family.
Hyperactive, super healthy dad.
Right. Well, I don't recommend anything even to my family, but they end up demanding it. My brother was pretty upset that we weren't giving him any.
Well, it seems like it's working out really well for your father. I mean, so
Seems
metformin,
like it,
the NMN, and what else is he taking?
He's also on a statin, and he exercises. That's the main.
So he's on a statin as well because he has the same predisposed condition, you know.
Right.
Yeah. That's an awful condition, man. I mean, one of the things that I was talking to my doctor about, he was saying that there are people that just have high blood pressure or higher blood pressure or higher instances of heart disease in their family, and it's just a really unfortunate genetic issue.
It is. But fortunately, we're able to tackle heart disease pretty well these days with blood pressure drugs and cholesterol drugs. There are some side effects, no question. But what we're talking about with these longevity drugs that are in development is that, sure, you can be prescribed this medicine for your Alzheimer's or for your liver disease, but as a side effect, it'll keep the rest of your body healthy as well, protect you against cancer and all these other things. So that's what's so radical about what we're doing.
Situation.
Well, it is. And so we have 3 dogs. My wife runs a therapy dog organization.
Barbra Streisand had her beloved dog Samantha cloned. That crazy bitch. Look at her.
2 copies of 1 dog.
Jesus Christ, that's so strange. How about just get a new dog, you fucking nut?
So we might be nuts in my household because we're giving our dogs NMN.
Oh, and how's it doing? How old's the dog
So
now?
far so good. The oldest dog is 9 and he's still doing fine.
Does he look different?
My wife says so. These are anecdotes, so I'm not going to publish them, but so ours is a therapy dog and he has to go to hospitals and nursing homes. And if he has NMN, according to my wife, he can't be a therapy dog because he's too excited. He's running around, jumping around.
Really?
So that's anecdotal, but that seems to fit with what others have experienced too.
Wow. If like 15, 20 years from now, your dog's still chasing balls and people are going to come over your house. Hey, Dave, what the fuck's going on with your dog, man?
Right.
Is that the same dog?
That's Charlie, yeah.
How come Charlie doesn't have gray hair anymore, man?
Right. Well, people
You
ask
don't have
me,
any gray hair.
No,
Yeah, man, that's weird, isn't it? You don't have any?
that's weird, right?
How long have you been on this stuff?
Well, resveratrol I started 12 years ago.
Mm.
Metformin about 3 years ago, and NMN about the same time.
Wow. Does anyone in your family have gray hair? Is it a genetic issue?
My father has all gray hair, and my brother's about a third gray to half gray.
Wow. Is your brother taking the stuff you're taking?
Only recently.
Aha. Interesting.
Well, it often comes as a shock to people who don't work on this that we're already testing these molecules in clinical trials on elderly people. I've been doing that for a number of years now with some positive results. Over at Harvard, we were giving NMN and another molecule called MIB626.
What's the other one called? My laundry list. Hold on.
So the company's called Metro Biotech, and it makes super NAD boosters. And the drug is called, developmental drug is MIB-626.
626.
Yeah. And we're hoping that it will not just
Do I have to get
rejuvenate
that in
them.
an alleyway somewhere? Where do I
yeah.
get that? I got to go to some shady doctor with a weird accent.
That one we hope to get on the market in about 3 years from now.
Really?
Yeah, for diseases, FDA approved.
And so they're using it right now on old folks?
Testing it
Testing
for
it.
safety, yeah. But we're also going to be testing later energy. We can measure actually the NAD levels, that molecule I just mentioned. We can measure that in their muscles, and we'll test if that worked. And we'll measure, of course, their endurance. Because the mice that we treated with NMN, they just ran and ran and ran. They actually broke the little treadmill in my lab because they ran so far.
And you're giving it to them orally, or you're injecting it to them?
It's a little tablet.
They just put it in their food or something like that?
Oh, the mice?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I thought you were talking about the humans. In the mice, we put in their drinking water. Yeah, they just drink it. It's really easy.
Wow. And they have no idea.
No idea. And in fact, the people who are running the treadmill have no idea which is which. But we had mice running 3 kilometers, and then the machine stopped. And I get a text from the researcher, hey, the machine broke. And I said, check the software. And it turns out the software was written to stop at 3 kilometers because no mouse had run that far before.
That's long.
And those are old mice. Don't forget.
Yeah.
These are mice that are the equivalent of a 65-year-old human.
Really?
Yeah. And we figured out why they run further. This isn't just try it and see. We figured out that the lining of the blood vessels needs NAD as you get older. Well, they need it all the time, but as you get older, you don't have enough NAD. So the NMN replenishes that and allows the blood vessel lining to respond to exercise and even grow blood vessels if you don't exercise. And so those mice, they ran and ran and ran. They didn't get lactate buildup as much. They just didn't feel tired.
So they didn't have lactic acid buildup.
Right.
Wow. So muscle fatigue would be different.
Well, they didn't seem to get that either.
Wow.
Because just better blood flow. We even pinched off an artery, and the body responded much better to restoring blood flow, which would be great for patients who have a heart attack.
Whoa. Now, with human beings, what has been the most dramatic result?
That's a hard question because a lot of it's early stage. We developed a molecule that seemed to effectively treat a disease called psoriasis, which is the
Yeah, a friend of
inflammation.
mine has that.
Yeah, so that worked, and that's a molecule.
Is
that's
it something you apply to the skin?
It was a pill actually. Yeah.
And how does that work? What is it doing?
So it's an activator of one of these sirtuins that we found in yeast originally. These sirtuin protective enzymes in the body, and they're anti-inflammatory. We work with a cosmetic company that so far so good, but I don't endorse products. That's not me. But also, what's interesting is that these mice, at least, they stay younger looking as well. They don't just live longer. So there's hope that. So I mean, the skin is a big organ. Okay, so
Right.
why wouldn't it stay young just like the rest of the body?
Well, it's certainly indicative of whether or not a person's healthy, right? If you see someone and their skin is really saggy. I always want to know, what are you doing to yourself?
How long have you got?
Like, what do you do on a daily basis?
What do I do?
First of all, are you 100 years old?
Getting there.
How old are you?
Turning 50. So
You're turning 50?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought you were 50. I would have figured you were for about 41, 42.
Well, that's kind of you. Well, my brother's the negative control, and he's
Mind-blowing in terms of how hard that is. So
Really?
I don't know how he did it in 5 minutes. But,
Well, he's a savage.
you know, it's interesting, though. I started to listen to your podcast with David Sinclair on the car ride over, and he's talking about this NMN stuff, which supposedly, when orally administered, simulates a lot of what NR, nicotinamide riboside, which is one thing that a lot of people are taking for anti-aging, and NAD, which is what we were just talking about, administered via either, in most cases, it's IV. There's a couple companies doing like an oral NAD version. But supposedly NMN, I don't know if Sinclair has any human studies coming out on this right now, but or at least released. But he's done rodent studies and shown that it's like exercise in a bottle. The NAD, from what I understand, though, and this returns to the TBI concussion piece, crosses the blood-brain barrier easily, or more easily, than NMN or NR. So if you were doing it for like a cognitive or a neurological effect, you may want to choose NAD. It sounds to me like, from the research I've seen, if you were doing it for the exercise effect, maybe you'd choose NMN or NR.
Interesting.
The,
So
the
maybe
anti-aging effect, I mean, they don't even know in many cases all the pathways on which these things are working, but most of them are related to these sirtuin pathways, right? Like sirtuin activating compounds that actually allow your mitochondria to repair more quickly or give your body more antioxidants. So the idea is they probably all have a pretty good effect on anti-aging.
And when you're doing it, are you pushing yourself? You say you're doing it.
So, but most of them are related to these sirtuin pathways, right? Like sirtuin activating compounds that actually allow your mitochondria to repair more quickly or give your body more antioxidants. So the idea is they probably all have a pretty good effect on anti-aging.